Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated in loving memory of Mrs. Lily Safra Leah Shalom, Lilu Nishmat Leah Bat Chana. Her philanthropy has reached so many throughout the entire world. Also sponsored by Aaron Bailey, dedicated in loving memory of his grandfather, Harry Bailey Alav Shalom, Lilu Nishmat Aaron Ben Esther. And as well, the month of Kobra was dedicated in honor of Rachel Sai, donated by her children. And the week of Kobra was sponsored by David E. Ash, in honor of you and your substantial capacity to good today and every day. Honorable mention to someone who just reached out to me to tell me that they listened to the class from the northern tip of Australia. So I'm not sure if that counts as high or low, but it definitely counts as very, very, very far. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I think he said it was Weipa, W-E-I-P-A. I think that's what he said, Weipa. But we're still waiting for someone to have it on while skydiving, or on the plane, or someone to take it on Blue Origin on their very first space flight. To have someone listen to the Breakfast in the Class on the moon would be amazing. So let's go. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, get your act together. Let's do it. My friends, the Pasuk tells us, Vayitzav otam lemor, ko tomar, so should you, ko tomru la'adoni le'esav. So should you say to my master, to Esav. Yaakov Avinu is very worried about the fact that Esav is coming towards him in the words of Uncle Moshe. Esav is coming with 400 men. Yaakov daven to Hashem. Do you remember this? And I was thinking to myself recently, there's a lot of things that we unnecessarily do to dramatize our children. Do we need to have them singing about the fact that there's 400 men coming to kill the Jews? I mean, that's not something I think that we need to have children sing about from the time before the time they understand even what anti-Semitism is. And if we're worried that they won't learn about anti-Semitism, we have nothing to worry about. Kanye, Akon, Whoopi Goldberg, but a long list of people that will consistently remind them that anti-Semitism is alive and well. Yemach Shemam. Okay, the pasuk says that Yaakov is worried about the fact that they're coming towards. So he tells the angels that are with him, or the messengers that he sends to Esav, however you understand it, he sends a messenger and he says, please tell my master Esav, Im Lavan Garti, I lived with Lavan, Ve'echar ad ata, and I delayed until now. Vayili shor v'chamor, and I have ox, I have oxen, I have donkeys, tzon, I have sheep, I have eved, shivcha, I have servants, maidservants, ve'eshlecha la'agid la'adoni lemsochem einecha. And I'm sending all this to you to find favor in your eyes. I want to go through this carefully because I think that this is such a powerful line. Let's go through this again. Yaakov is worried, so he sends a message to Esav. I lived with Lavan, I delayed until now. I have all these items. Here's a list of about my earnings portfolio. I have sheep and donkeys and cattle and maidservants. I have all these things, and I'm sending this to you to find favor in your eyes. What is he sending? The pasuk continues and says that he sends a present to Esav, and he tells him to space it out and have it come in, and it looks very impressive, etc., etc. Rashi on the spot comes to tell us something really interesting. He says, "In Lavan Garti, I lived with Lavan." The word Garti, as we said, is the same letters as the word Taryag. V'Taryag mitzvot shamarti. I lived with Lavan and I kept the 613 mitzvot. So Rabbi Galinsky asks the most beautiful question. He says, "That's wonderful. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the famous story about a bunch of guys who were in the forest with a tour guide. Anyway, as they're walking through the forest, all of a sudden they see a big grizzly bear. The grizzly bear leans up on its back legs, right? And it starts roaring. They all look at the tour guide. The tour guide says to them, clap your hands and make noise. If you clap your hands and you make noise, that's what you're supposed to do when you see a grizzly bear. So the first guy is already clapping, he's making noise. Second guy clapping, already making noise. The third guy says to the tour guide, look, I know that that's what you're supposed to do for a grizzly bear. And you know that's what you're supposed to do. but does the grizzly bear know that that's what you're supposed to do? Right? When you see the grizzly bear, like, is he also aware of the protocol here that if we clap and yell that he leaves? Like, did someone tell him that that's what this means? Famous joke. My friends, I want to ask you this question on this pasuk. Lavan Garti. Rashi says, Tayag mitzvot shamarti. But did Esav learn Rashi? Did someone tell Esav that Garti, same letters, Taryag, and I kept the Taryag mitzvot, right? Did Esav know this? Did Esav care? So what's going on here? And if Esav doesn't care, then why is Yaakov saying it? If Esav does care, then why doesn't Yaakov say straight out? I went to Lavan's house, I kept all the mitzvot. What's the answer? This is called, the literary mechanism for this is called mima nafshach. You know what that means? We use it in the Gemara. Mark, what does that mean in the Gemara? Mima nafshecha. Mima nafshecha means either way you go. If you go this way, it doesn't make sense. If you go this way, it doesn't make sense. If Esav knows what this means, understands, cares about it, right? Then Yaakov should say it, because that's what he's trying to do, convince him. And if Esav does not care about it, then what are we having? The Rashi. Rashi tells us, Lavan Garti means Tayag mitzvot shamat. What's happening here? Rabbi Galinsky says something so brilliant, it's just amazing. He says, Esav could not care less. Yaakov is talking to us. Rashi is talking to us. He's explaining that what a Jew believes is that what's going to save him or not save him ultimately are the deeds, the mitzvah, the Torah, the tzedakah that he does. That's what we believe. And by the way, I always say this. It's so interesting to see, because at that moment, one would think that that's the moment where it would be the most difficult to believe. A person's going through a very difficult time. They come to the rabbi, Rabbi, please, could you pray for me? Guy starts coming to shul, his mother's not well, his father's not well, his wife, bar minan. The big problems with his business, he needs direction. The guy starts turning up for classes, for minyan. You'd think that when the guy's having the worst time of his life, that would be the time when he's not connected to God, right? And yet, you see that the person believes that the way to solve his physical problems is by dialing up the spiritual. That is a tremendous, let's just focus on that for 1 second. That is a tremendous statement of faith. I have a problem in the hospital, I'm going to say Tehillim. What? I have a problem with my business, I don't know what to do. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give tzedakah. You're going to give more money away because you don't have money? Right, but haven't we all done this? Rabbi, I need to give it tzedakah, I need the zechut, I need the merit. The fact that you believe that this is going to work for you is a tremendous statement of faith. So Yaakov is nudge, wink, winking us. He's telling his children, his wives, Im Lavan Garti, guys, before I open up my mouth, anything to Esav, I want you to understand one thing. You know why or what is going to help? The fact that I kept the Taryag mitzvot. That's the difference. But now, the rest of this conversation is not for the benefit of himself or his wife or his children or the people that are going to learn from his ways. The rest of this conversation is directed at Esav. And Esav understands only one language. There's a famous song that goes, money, 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 money. Some of you might know that song. Money, 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 money. That's the song. Money, money. All it really needs is one word. Because, by the way, that's how some people are. That's all. So he needs to talk to Esav. What does he say to Esav? Esav, you know who I am? You know what I have? For Esav, the measure of a man is not the measure of a man. It's the measure of what the man has. So Yaakov says to him, I have a shore, I have a hamor, I have donkeys, I have this, I have oxen, I have cattle, I have maidservants, I have everything. I have all these things. I'm blessed. Not only that, I'm so rich, I'm sending you presents. The Chachamim say that on one level, what he's trying to hint to Esav is that the time for you to take back the berachot has clearly not arrived, because those berachot are manifesting in my life based on what I have, right? But on a much simpler level, what are you worth? That's your worth in this world. To people. You know what I always wanted to do? You ever meet people that are obsessed with money? The only people in shul they respect, the only people in the world they respect are people with money. Shema Yisrael. The other day I went to pay a shiva call. And I'm sitting there with this person, and I came back and someone had a meeting with me. So I told him, I'm really sorry, I'm going to be a little bit late. I have to go pay a shiva call. I come to this meeting, and the fella says to me, he goes, oh, who was it? I told him the person that I went to. He goes, oh, they must be a heavy hitter. I said, well, he goes, you just go to people, you go to all the people's shiva? I was like, what? He goes, you just go to, I thought maybe if you went to the shiva, it must be because they're a very important person, they're very wealthy people. I said, what? If there's ever a moment that you realize that that's not what's important, it's in death. When you can't take anything with you. Where literally nothing goes with you in your pockets to the other place. I was just blown away that that's the assumption, that people don't go to shivas that are not of important people. But that's an Esav mentality. You know what I always want to do? I always want to go to somebody like that in a synagogue, that behaves that way, that acts that way, that thinks that way. And I want to point out some random guy, maybe a guy who's even collecting money for tzedakah, and say to him, look, this guy, you don't know. He's an eccentric billionaire. The guy has holes in his shirt, he smells a little funny. All of a sudden, now the guy's cool. Now he's chic. Now he's interesting. Now a minute ago he was a bum. Now he's bohemian. You get me? Could you imagine the way the person's reaction changes if that's what they think about the person? My friends, Yaakov understands Esav language. Esav language is, this is what I have. If you meet people, and this is what they're telling you, I just want to let you know, this is what I have, this is what I have, this is what I do, this is what I run, this is what I own. We did this amount last year. That's Esav language. Recognize that in the conversation there, that's how he defines what makes a person a success or not. Understand that about the person. That's what he's telling you when he speaks that way about himself to you. And that's what you're saying when you speak that way to others. I want to share with you a wild story, which is a little painful, so forgive me. The rabbi was collecting tzedakah, and he traveled in his travels to many different places to raise money for yeshivot, for poor people, all around. Anyway, he goes to one place, he gives a speech, knocks it out of the park. It's interesting also, if you ever give a speech, and you kill it. You speak so well, fire. It's never happened to me, but I've heard from others. So you do a great job. All of a sudden, a guy comes up to you, he's like, oh wow, he wants to be your best friend now. And you have to think, what does that mean? The same way that the measure of a person is not in what he has, the measure of a person is also not in what he or she can do. Or because you're a better orator, that makes you a better person? That makes you a better tzaddik? Who said? The greatest tzaddik we ever had couldn't get a word out edgewise. Moshe Rabbeinu. Did you ever have a person think, Moshe Rabbeinu, look, he's amazing, great guy, don't get me wrong, Moshe Rabbeinu, fantastic. I don't really like his speeches. I like Rabbi Mansour more. Mansour kills it. Oh, fantastic. Moshe Rabbeinu, the guy's stammering, he's stuttering, I don't know.
How could a guy hear both of them?
Sorry?
How could a guy have heard both?
How could a guy have heard both? Serach bat Asher, Eliyahu Hanavi, for a couple. The two of them go around everywhere, popcorn. They have Siskel and Ebert for rabbis. 2 thumbs up, 5 stars. My friends, how the Torah thinks so differently from people. Charisma, dynamism, oratory, sports skill, personality. You have a person who fills their room with their personality, and people respect it. Popularity, that's what's valuable. By the way, in a fight, who do you want with you? When you're in the dumps, who do you want with you? When you're in the dumps, you want loyalty. When you're feeling terrible, you want generosity. When a person is able to see clearly, these things don't matter. It's just so irrelevant. So my friends, this rabbi speaks, knocks it out of the park, kills it. Guy comes up, oh, Rabbi, maybe you could come to my house afterwards. I'd like to make a donation to your causes. Rabbi goes around the house, never happened before. Person should want to make a donation to him. Goes around the house, sits down the guy's thing. The guy has a check on the table from the bank, attesting to the fact that he has in his accounts $11 million. Back then, $11 million could buy you more than a Snickers, right? $11 million. Rabbis, wow. Hazaku Baruch, Misha Berach. He says, Rabbi, I'd love to make a donation to your causes. It's very beautiful. He says, but I need to explain to you why I called you here today. I called you here today because my son, unfortunately, my one son, is dating this girl, and she's not Jewish. He's my only son, the only continuity that I'll have from my Jewish heritage. And he's walking off a cliff. And there's nothing I could say or do that will stop him. He says, but I'm prepared right now. If you go to this guy, if you go to my son and you convince him not to marry this girl, I'm prepared to write you a check for $5.5 million, half of everything I have. The rabbi says, wow, okay. He says, I don't need the money's not for me. I collect money for tzedakah, it's not for me. He says, I don't need your pennies. The guy says, my pennies. Rabbi says, yeah, I have a personal wealth, he says, of hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't need your pennies. For tzedakah, maybe that's something important, but for me, it's not. The guy says, what do you mean? The rabbi smiles and he says, listen, you just told me that if I managed to get your son to marry a Jewish girl, to build a Jewish family, to continue a Jewish legacy, you would pay $5.5 million. He says, I have a family of 10 kids. All of them marry Jews. All of them have a Jewish family. And not only that, they have grandkids. And every one of those grandkids, I have grandkids, they have children, is also marrying a Jewish family and building a Jewish family in Israel. Religious, connected to Torah and mitzvot. If the price of a kid is 5.5, what's the price of a grandkid? What's the price of a grandkid getting married and starting his own family with grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids? So if the price of one is 5.5, I have hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't need your pennies. Anyway, he's walking him out the door at the end of this conversation. And the rabbi said, what's interesting? The rabbi thinks to himself, for the 10 seconds when I told him I had hundreds of millions of dollars, I could see that his face changed. The way he looked at me was different. And then he found out I didn't have hundreds of millions of dollars. I only had Jewish family with Jewish grandkids. The rabbi says, can I please borrow your phone before I go? I says, why? He said, I have to make a phone call. Who are you calling? Calling his wife. The rabbi said, I was so excited, I forgot the time difference to Israel. I called my wife. My wife wakes up in the middle of the night, and he says, I just wanted to tell you, honey, that we are millionaires, maybe billionaires. We have hundreds of millions of dollars. She says, what do you mean? And he tells her the story. I'm in this place, this guy says. That's the story. I want to tell you my observation. For those 30 seconds, the man looks at the rabbi. You're on. Then he realizes, he's only talking. To me, this is it's something to really think about. You see, 2 minutes ago, the guy actually made a material offer of $5.5 million for his son to be able to kind of marry in the faith to build. So that means that he alone, he himself, not some rabbi in some class, in some breakfast in the class recording, he himself said that that's what it was worth to him, that he would pay. 30 seconds later, when the rabbi tells him that that's what he has, and he treats, it's a nice Dvar Torah now, Rabbi. My friends, the price of a Jewish education is priceless. We talk about how expensive tuition is. You know what's more expensive? Not having tuition. Much more expensive. There's no one that Jewish schooling cost them $5.5 million. But my friends, sometimes we live between Yaakov and Esav. We live between a place where what saves you and what works and what's important is Lavan Garti, Taryag Mitzvot Shamarti, where Torah is the most important thing, and being a good person is the most important thing. And in the way, we live between Yaakov's definition and Esav's definition, where the value of something or someone is what they have, or what they can do, and not who they are. You know, every once in a while, I get a chance to meet one of the heroes that survived Auschwitz or Dachau or the Death March. And you meet people like this, and they talk to you about faith. I think to myself, Shema Yisrael. These are diamonds that the Jewish people has. You meet someone like that, diamond. The rabbis used to say, if you want a beracha, and you see someone in the synagogue with numbers on their arm, you can go get a beracha from them. They're in synagogue, they have numbers on their arm, get a beracha. Satmar Rebbe used to say that to people. Unfortunately, there's less people now where you can walk up to them and see under their tefillin a number on their arm. But my friends, it's not only Holocaust survivors that have that. What about a cancer survivor who's in shul? What about a person who had a lot of money and when went bankrupt who's in shul? What about a person who has problems with his family, he's getting divorced, messy situation, and he's in shul, and he's coming to class and he's learning, and he's saying that what's important to me is Taryag Mitzvot Shamarti. Go get a beracha from him too. We have to sometimes catch ourselves and not use the language of the world around us to define what is important to us. Not let someone steal Taryag Mitzvot Shamarti from being the value. And what does he have? Shor, Hamor, Seh, Evet, Shivcha. The simple interpretation of the pasuk is, I sent these to you, Vayishlach, and I sent you this gift, limtzochen be'enecha, to find favor in your eyes. But you know how I'm understanding that pasuk now? Vayishlach, and not I sent you the gift to find favor in your eyes. I sent you these messengers to tell you what I have to find favor in your eyes. Because if I'm a rich man, I'd have your respect. Remember that song? If I was a rich man, ya ba 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 ba, I'd have all the money in the world. And the whole story talks about what you would have and what you would buy. But it's interesting that for some people, if I was a rich man, the reason why they want riches is just to be able to have the other person look at them on the same level and not down on them. What kind of toxic situation are we creating in our lives, in our community, with our children, if we buy in to the Esav system? When you were young, you may remember there was a time when they were trying to figure out if this country should go metric or not. Remember that? Yeah. They were deciding, should we be feet, inches, or should we be centimeters, meters, like Europe? They switched, people went Majnoon. Right? I thought it was a fantastic time, because you all of a sudden you went from 200 pounds to 100 kilo. Fantastic! It's a much lower number. Yeah? From Fahrenheit to Celsius. My friends, there's two ways of measuring space. Feet and inches, or centimeters and meters. There's also two ways of measuring people. Yaakov and Esav. Which one are you? Baruch Adonai Le'olam.